Nick, I've already done this whole podcast. I went back into the closet, dark space. I held my fists, came back, redoing it all.
Well, Joe's a time traveler, so that's nice. It's nice.
Welcome to May the Review Be With You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
I'm Nick.
And today we are continuing our dive into time travel movies, the Time Travel Draft. This is a Time Travel Draft podcast now. We're continuing that with About Time. This is Nick's pick for, I believe it was for the romantic time travel category, right?
Correct.
Cool. Nick, I hate you for picking this movie. I love this movie. But with that, I will ask you, why did you pick this movie?
This is probably one of the saddest movies you'll ever watch. But it's also one of the best movies you'll ever watch. And from a time travel perspective, it's glorious. There are flaws, which we will talk about. But it is just, it's just fun because it's like it's like a romantic comedy, but it's also like a time travel movie, and it's got a little bit of drama in it, and like, yeah, it's honestly like one of like I really enjoy it. So had to pick it for time travel romance category, even though it does come with some waterworks. So forewarning.
Yeah, no, it really does. I'm glad that this movie was in our time travel movie draft, even if it is not on my team of time travel movies. It really is. It's got a special place in my heart. It's weird because like I think you can probably get through 2/3, if not 75% of this movie without like any tears, and then just like the last like 15 to 20 minutes is just
yeah,
pull your heartstring after heartstring.
Yeah,
it is. But like you said it was a sad movie, and I agree. Like there is sadness in this movie, but it's kind of beautifully sad, right? Like
right.
In a really like optimistic way,
right?
Yeah, it's definitely not like and then you're full of melancholy and dread at the end. It's like it's sad, but like it's what does Ron say in Prisoner of Azkaban? It's like you're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it.
Happy about it, yeah.
That's what it is.
This movie is a theatrical representation of the Grimm.
Look at that! Look at that! We circled back to our last movie. Perfect.
Time travel.
That was perfect. I didn't even have to go into my closet and go back in time to rehearse that. We just did that. We were just right in sync. Look at that. Look at us.
Fantastic. Anyway, Joe, you're stalling. You have to review this. You have to give us a 15-second summary of this movie. So,
all right. Please explain for anyone who does not know.
For those of you who don't know, Joe and I, every time we review a film, we alternate on who has to give a 15-second summary of that film. And it is now Joe's turn to give us a 15-second summary of this film called About Time. Joe, I'm going to count down. When I say go, you begin. 3, 2, 1, go.
A man finds out after his 21st birthday that the men in his family can travel back in time. He uses this to improve his life and try to find love, but quickly finds out that there are some things in life that time travel can't fix, and he goes on a journey about life to become a respectful man. Done.
Wow. Finished right before 15 seconds? You were cheating. You were reading from something. I saw you reading. What were you? Is that the summary from Wikipedia? You son of a bitch. You're not allowed to use Wikipedia.
I'm not gonna lie.
You're such a cheater.
I actually practiced that one.
I
actually practiced that one.
I'm so pissed off at Joe.
Hey, no one said you couldn't rehearse it.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. Joe, that might be the best summary that either of us have given on this podcast in 2 years. That is the best
Definitely the best one
summary.
I've done. I don't think I've ever.
Definitely the best one you've done. The best one I did, I believe, was Dungeons and Dragons. Was like a fantastic summary. That was my best one, I believe.
It was the same ending too. Like you got to the ending, or you finished before the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, then I think like you've succeeded.
Right. That was incredible. Okay, you that's an A+. I mean,
that's the first A+ you've ever given me. Let's go. Let's go.
Hey, oh, let's go. Hey, oh, let's go.
It does help when you love the movie.
Congrats. You did well.
Thank you.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Man, this is the difference here between the last movie we reviewed in our time travel draft, Harry Potter, is it's 2.5 hour movie, and time travel only happens basically in the last 45 minutes. This is a time travel film. This film called About Time is time travel's happening the whole time. So
whole time.
Yeah, we can. Obviously, we're going to focus more on the time travel aspect of it, but I guess we can kind of give some overall thoughts. Whatever you want to start with, take it away.
Yeah. First thought. Forgot Margot Robbie was in this movie.
This is the Margot Robbie movie that no one has seen.
Yes, that is correct. When she showed up as Charlotte, I was like genuinely like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Because I remember Rachel McAdams, right? But like,
right, of course.
I aside from Bill Nighy, I thought I didn't know any of the other actors, and then like. All of a sudden, here comes Margot Robbie, and playing a pretty minor character in this movie. Sorry, I just had to like get that out there. I was genuinely like very surprised to see her.
I have that note written down as well. You just got there before me. You son of a bitch.
Nick, I've already done this whole podcast. I went back into the closet in dark space. I held my fists, came back, and redoing it all.
Well, Joe's a time traveler, so that's nice. It's nice.
No, so I just in overall in the plot of this movie, I think it's a really sweet idea. I like so basically Bill Nighy, who plays the dad in this movie, has a conversation explaining like how time travel in their family works, and his son, who's in denial about it, eventually asks like, well, what about the butterfly effect? And I think like what he says kind of like perfectly encapsulates like the rest of the movie. He's like, well, we haven't brought down the end of society yet, so it seems to be working out pretty well so far. Right? Like, I think, like, that idea of what if you could time travel, but, like, it doesn't bring on a dystopian, like, apocalypse? Like, we've all kind of, like, had that thought, right? Like, can I undo this? What would it be like? This is that thought. This movie is that thought, right?
Right. With some rules and some caveats.
Yes.
That I think work. I mean, if you're going to... But you can't, like, get too deep on the science details or it'll ruin the movie for you. Does that make sense? Like, you have to kind of just...
Yeah.
It's a romantic comedy time travel film. Like, it's supposed to be fun, but also make you feel something. And one of those things is you're not supposed to take everything too seriously.
No, I 100% agree with this. We are going to talk about the time travel in this movie because we are grading a time travel mechanic against other time travel movies.
Right.
And I think that, like you said, there are some problems with this mechanism of time travel, but I don't think that hurts the plot of this movie at all. I think the plot of this movie is pretty solid all the way through. It's a beautiful film. Honestly, the mechanism for time travel is honestly like the least important thing in this movie. At least that's how I felt. I don't know about you.
Yeah, the time travel mechanism, like how you actually time travel it's just a basic thing, like it's...
Right, they kept it very simple.
Very simple. You go in a dark room, you clench your fists, you think about where you want to go, and then you're there. It's like, okay, sure.
Right, they're very like careful with the wording on it too, right? It's like it has to be in your lifetime. It has to be something that you remember, so you can't accidentally send yourself to like your mother's womb or something, like something horrifying like that.
Right. The only places you've been and can't remember. You can't go to the future.
Mm-hmm.
But you can come back to the present. So like, you can go to the past, and then you can do whatever you wanted to change, and then you can go right back to your future if you want.
Right, so you don't have to relive the actual timeline.
The whole timeline,
Yeah.
if you don't want to. Where do we start?
Let's just get into the protag, whose name I am blanking on right now. Oh my god, what is the main character's name? Help me out here. MC's name. It's not Tim, right? It's not Timothy. It's not Tim. Why do I want to call him Tim? It's not Tim.
God.
It's not Tim. I don't know why I want him to be Tim.
Hold on, I got it up.
I just watched this today. It is Tim.
Oh, it is Tim. Okay.
It is Tim.
Yeah. You're right.
Why'd I doubt myself?
Oh my god, I just realized that Joanna is Vanessa Kirby.
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, there's actually like some big
who,
names in this movie.
I was like, who is this? Why does she look so familiar? Vanessa Kirby. Holy shit. Hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Bill Nighy. Is
Bill
so good.
Nighy.
My goodness.
What a perfect casting for
Yeah.
a father figure.
Also,
Yeah,
since I segued us to casting,
sure.
Richard Griffiths,
Yes.
the guy who plays Uncle Vernon in Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
This was his
Very minor character here.
This was the last film he ever made.
No, I didn't know that.
He died like 6 months after, I think, is what I read.
No post
Super
on
sad.
Sunday.
Super sad.
Oh.
Yeah, crazy. Last film we ever did was About Time.
I mean, hey, he had a really fun minor
Fun
role
little
in this
role.
movie.
Yeah, super fun role.
Yeah, and this was a great movie. What a great way to go out. Good note. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did recognize him when he popped in, because other than Harry Potter, I don't really know him from anything. And yeah, when he showed up, I was like, oh shoot, no post on Sunday. This is wonderful.
No
But
post on Sunday.
Anywho, let's talk about Tim, because the majority of this movie, if not all of it, centers around Tim's perspective of the world. And Tim basically starts out as he's a bit of a loser. In fact, his dad loves the hell out of him, but his dad seems to be aware of this. And after New Year's party and after Tim has turned 21, Bill Nighy, his dad, tells him that the men in their family can travel back in time, and he explains how they're able to do that, which kind of sends Tim down this rabbit hole of how to use time travel to try and better his life. And I think they use the mechanism really poignantly throughout most of the film. I really love that first summer that he's trying to make Margot Robbie fall in love with him, and he can't do it, and comes to the realization that even if you have the power of time, you can't make someone fall in love with you.
Right.
Yeah. I love how hypocritical her character comes off throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Which I don't really think that makes her a bad person. I don't know. I think that speaks to how complex people can be. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or also how much people will avoid giving someone the truth to their face and would rather figure out a way to let them down easier instead. Right? Because in this case, the both times when it's the end of the summer and he goes to her room to try to court her, and she goes, oh, if only you had told me at the beginning of the summer, we could have had the whole time. And then he goes back in time to the beginning of the summer, and she goes, you should come on the last night. It'll be fun, It's total opposite, reactions, and both trying to let him down easy in a way, right? And that's when he has the realization of it doesn't matter how much time you have, you can't make someone love you, basically. And
but then
so he kind of moves
revisit
on.
that, right? After he's fallen in love with Rachel McAdams, about maybe a third into the way of the movie, we're reintroduced to Charlotte, Margot Robbie, and she seems to be all about Tim all of a sudden, right? And the timing of it just doesn't work for Tim because his heart belongs to Mary, Rachel McAdams' character. Which, yeah, I really liked how poignant this was, because even if if time travel like is, in your favor, if you can go back, there still is the question of morals, right? And I think like even though Tim can make an utter fool of himself all the time, which just, oh my God, so relatable, especially the gay conversation that he has at one point with Charlotte.
Oh my God, that's one of the funniest scenes in the whole thing.
God, that is so rough. He's not a bad person, right? And even though he could erase,
such a funny movie.
Oh yeah,
right.
we'll go back to the gay conversation if you want, but like I just want to
no,
say,
you don't
like,
have to, but yeah,
he, even with the power of time, he could have an affair with Charlotte, and erase it so it's as if it never happened, but he experienced it, right? But like he can't do that because of his morals. And I don't know. I really liked that. I thought that made him a very strong character, right?
Yeah. Well, it also would have ruined the movie if he did, because from the beginning, like when he has that first conversation with his father about being able to time travel, he asks his dad, like, they have this conversation about, well, why didn't you want to be rich or do this, or like, well, you could have done anything, like what did you want to do or whatever, and he's like, well, I spent most of my time reading, and like, and he essentially, and then his dad asks him, he's like, well, do you want to figure out like the meaning to all this yourself, or do you want me to just tell you, like, and like he tells him essentially, and that it's really just about people and the people in your life, and like, finding love and all of that. And so that's kind of where Tim's pursuit from the beginning of the movie is all about, right? It's about finding the one, basically. And so if you would have taken the opportunity halfway through the film to like use time to his advantage and sleep with the girl that he couldn't get back in the day, like it would have just ruined the arc of the character anyway. So it was nice that they like dangled it and then brought his, kept his morals like in check.
Yeah. I feel like this movie, maybe I'm wrong here. I would love to like have a debate about this. So like, when you have a story, you can either have a very plot motivated story, you can have a very character motivated story. And this movie, even though like it really centers around an ensemble of characters, right, through the perspective of Tim, it feels very plot motivated, right? Like, because like as far as Tim's like actual like growth goes, I don't know if I could say that there's like a upward arc to it, right? Like, I mean, I guess he gains some confidence throughout the film.
Yeah,
but I don't know. What else do you think he gains, like, as a character? Maybe an appreciation for life?
Perspective, for sure. I mean, he's especially towards that part of the film where his dad gives him the advice to live every day a second time, right? Where you essentially, you go through the day, like, for the first time with all of its, like, hardship and annoyances and all the things that are rough and all that, and then you do the day over and you appreciate all the things that you were annoyed about. It's a very awesome perspective. Like, the film is like just oozing with perspective on like how to treat your daily life. Like, it's really awesome. And I think that's what he learns. He gains perspective and appreciation for the moments, and to appreciate being in the moment, and then also not having to go relive it or change every little thing that you didn't like, because life is about those things that you can't change, basically. And his character does grow, because he ends up saying later that he really doesn't travel back in time very much anymore. And I think one of the only things keeping him traveling was being able to go talk to his father. And then this is when we get one of the additional rules later on in the film. This is where there's maybe the slight issue with the film is it kind of is introducing us to time travel rules throughout it, without, like, we're not getting the full scope of the time travel mechanic from the beginning. We're finding out the rules as we go, and one of those is like, you can only travel back as far as your last kid. Well, you can go further, but if you come back, you might have a different kid, because the sperm might be different and all that. So like,
you'd have to live with the knowledge that you erased like a
different kid,
a different person, right?
Right. There's a different, which happens in the film at one point, and then he has to go back and change that to which
So real quick on this. So this is my number one gripe with this movie. Bill Nighy is such a loving father throughout this entire experience, and he comes off as so wise throughout this entire movie. And he explains, nearly all the rules in the beginning of the story. This feels like the most important rule that could have come up during the butterfly effect conversation, and he just neglects it for dramatic reasons later in the movie. What?
Yeah. The only reason that I can think of to why he didn't tell Tim, his son, this really important rule when he turned 21 is because he didn't want it to keep Tim from having kids. Because if you think about it, if you tell a 21-year-old who just found out he can time travel, but if he has kids, it'll change the kid that he has. Maybe it makes the 21-year-old think he doesn't want kids, and maybe that changes the trajectory of his life. So, and if you're a selfish grandfather, maybe you want grandkids and you want to not have to worry about that particular rule. And in the moment, it didn't matter to Tim because he didn't have kids yet. So he was maybe holding back that information until it was relevant. However, once you have the kid, it's relevant. So maybe tell him.
Hey, be careful what you do from now on.
Yeah.
No, I actually really like that logic. Because, Tim even says at one point, you don't realize how much your world changes until you have a child, which is, of course, something that many of us have heard, if not experienced. And yeah, it would be kind of great to hear Bill Nighy come in after this realization happens and say I couldn't tell you that before because you wouldn't have understood the weight of that rule until after you're a parent. So yeah, I like the logic that you just gave. I think that really works. It's too bad it wasn't in the movie.
I know. It's definitely a problem with the time travel mechanic. I'm just thinking outside the box.
I like the limitation on it, right? I think it's a really good limitation. But it's purposely held back for dramatic reasons, right?
Yeah.
And it's come on. Bill Nighy's character is clearly very intelligent.
Yeah. Their relationship is so good. The on-screen chemistry between Dom Hall, Gleason, and Bill Nighy is fantastic. And Rachel McAdams. I mean, this is another Rachel McAdams had an amazing run of rom-coms that she was in the mid 2000s, unreal. And the director of this film also directed. What was the other one that he directed? The director of this film also directed a couple other rom-coms, famously. No, I'm having to look it up again because I forgot off the top of my head.
Oh, Love Actually.
Love Actually, thank you. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Richard Curtis did Love Actually and Notting Hill, 4 Weddings and a Funeral. He wrote directed Yesterday, the movie about the Beatles music. Yeah. He's got a really awesome little catalog here, and a lot of some of these, really. He's just known for these kind of films, I guess. But yeah, so that was kind of cool because Tim, the reason the Notting Hill thing was shocking to me is because Tim's character in About Time kind of feels a lot like the main character in Notting Hill, which I don't know if you've ever seen Notting Hill or not, but if you haven't,
I've actually not
I think
seen
you would
Notting
enjoy
Hill.
it. You would enjoy that film. I think it's really good. But Hugh Grant, young Hugh Grant, Julia Roberts.
Oh wow!
In those films, yeah, definitely worth watching. Anyway,
what's really interesting about this movie is, like we said before, and I think this is one of the reasons why I was able to do well in my summary. There's not a lot of conflict in this movie. There's certainly frustrations, and the movie starts out as if it's gonna be like a classic romantic comedy of boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl again.
Right.
But we go through that formula very quickly, and then the rest of the movie it's almost as if this movie asks the question of what happens after boy gets girl again.
Right.
What, time travel?
Right.
And it just keeps going on into their lives. And I guess the life lessons he continues to learn in adulthood.
It's really it's just a simple story of a normal life, but you just throw a time travel mechanic into it. It's literally if anyone listened to this or us just we have normal lives, we go, regular jobs, we have families, all these things. And if you just gave us the ability to time travel, what would that be like? And this is like what that movie is basically, because there's not like crazy conflict, right? There are accidents that happen with family, right? Or there's, his dad ends up getting cancer, which is a huge, turns into like, this is like one of the reasons the end of the movie is so sad, because he's only able to go back to see his father one more time because he's about to have another kid, and the father has died, so he can't go back in time to see his father, because when he comes back, it'll be a different kid. So he's got like, this is the last time he's ever going to have a conversation with his dad. It's like super sad. But like, that's like a normal life problem, right? But it becomes complicated when you throw time travel into it, because now you get to choose like how much you can go revisit, your loved ones who are gone and things like that. So it's like very interesting.
Well, it's the question
wrench.
of like, yeah, it's the question of like being stuck in the past, right? And like refusing to like move forward, versus choosing to move forward and embracing whatever comes next, right?
Right.
And I think that's a really beautiful message that the movie sets up. And you just laid out like a lot of things that makes the family like pretty relatable, right?
Right.
Bill Nighy's character getting cancer. Tim is a goofy, awkward loser who carries a lot of anxiety, but still, somehow makes it work. The family itself is like made to be very relatable, except for one thing. And don't get me wrong, I know that there is a reason for it. I just think it's funny considering how relatable the whole family is. They're so obnoxiously rich. Like crazy. Like the characters are specifically made to be so relatable, and they are, and everyone is delivering great performances. They are so relatable, except for this one thing, that they are so rich in England. They drink tea for hours out on this like coastal like environment that's so beautiful, and they don't have a care in the world. Again, I get it. I know why they're rich. And with the time travel power, it would make you ask, why aren't they rich?
Right.
Granddad did it, and he wasn't happy.
Right.
I like the movie that movie addresses that. We move forward. Right. It's something that makes me laugh. It's like they're super relatable, except for that.
Right. It's also brutal too, because like, like his dad gets cancer, and they address that too, where he's just like, of course I got, I went back in time. I got diagnosed as early as I could, but by that time it was too late, because I had been smoking my whole life and all these things. It's just like so brutal. And the thing that makes it more brutal is the music, the soundtrack. The soundtrack in this film is incredible.
Dude, I repeatedly stopped to try and figure out what some of these songs were.
Yeah. Well, and like there are songs like in the film, obviously, that are, written by musicians and things like that. But then there's also like the underlying soundtrack that was composed specifically for the film, and that specifically is like heart wrenching. It's like the film opens that way, and when you've seen this film already and you hear the music for the first time, you're just like, oh my god, I'm setting myself up for just like some rough moments towards the end, because the music really, really takes those scenes where, he's like seeing his father for the last time and having these tough conversations, like really makes those scenes come together. I just love films that focus on the soundtrack as like a way to drive the,
I agree.
feeling.
I think this movie is firing on all cylinders, including the musical composition. There's one thing I have to address that you mentioned, the scene where Bill Nighy is talking about his cancer diagnosis. This was probably my favorite line in the entire movie, where Nighy explains to Tim, it was probably the cigarettes that I had been smoking, which I could never have stopped, since I'm pretty sure it's what your mother was drawn to, since I'm such a sexy smoker. Absolutely loved that.
So good. So good. And also with a scene where, Tim and Charlotte get married, and he has to pick a best man, and he goes through like all three friends that he could choose, and finally he goes back in time and picks his father. And then his father gives a speech for the first time, and they're talking about it after the wedding, and they're both having this moment, and like Tim looks at his father and he goes, no, it was really great. Like And like the only thing that his father didn't say was "I love you" at the end of the speech, and he's like, "I really should have said I love you. I really did think I didn't do a good job." And Tim's trying to tell him, "No, it was an amazing speech. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way." And they look at each other, and like Tim already knows what's gonna happen. His dad's gonna go back in time and redo the speech, which is just funny because it just feels like we're in this weird loop where like the father and the son, for this one specific moment in both of their lives, they wanted it to be perfect, so they both went back in time for the same moment at different times to get it right. So I thought that was really funny, where they just like he goes back in time just to change one little thing in the speech.
What does he say to him? It's something along the lines of like, "Don't tell me how to live my life." It's something like that.
something clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
So to readdress Rachel McAdams here, I didn't remember. I mean, I knew she was in this movie, but like when the movie started, it had dawned on me that we have 2 time travel Rachel McAdams movies, at least 2. I don't think she's in any other of our choices. Right? She's not in Interstellar, right? No, that's not her.
No, she's not. No,
okay,
that's not
cool.
her.
Then yeah, it's just the 2, which I thought was really cool because she is 2 very different characters in this and then Midnight in Paris.
She's in Midnight in Paris.
She's in Midnight in Paris, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
She's the romantic lead.
Oh my god. Yeah.
And she does not get a lot to. I love that movie, and we'll get to that movie. She does not get a lot to work with in that movie, except be horrible.
Right.
Whereas in this one, like, she's really quite lovable, and she gets to be very goofy and awkward herself. It was really neat to see her do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the movie tries very hard to make Rachel McAdams in the beginning of the movie not look as hot as she actually is.
Right.
Like purposely trying to make her look a bit more wholesome. And I'm like, it's not working.
It's not working.
Nope. She's still hot.
That's funny.
Yeah. I think, most of the movie is very pleasant and delightful. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. This movie's like less, coming of age and more slice of life.
Right.
And yeah, really the last like 20 minutes, when we are trying to use time travel, to avoid some of life's harder learned lessons. And it simply just can't be done. The first, of course, being, a character we have not brought up is Tim's younger sister, Kit Kat. Who I love Kit Kat. She's so weird and crazy, and jumping on people.
Yeah.
It just seems to be so full of love. She has a line when she's speaking to her uncle that I think is so heartbreaking, during the wedding, when her uncle says, "Next it'll be you, Kit Kat." And she says, I don't think that's true, Uncle D. Boys can be mean. And Jesus, my heart just like crumbles at that line. And of course, we get to her whole, the arc of her movie where, and this is the first time this is introduced, and it's important for the end. Tim brings his sister back in time to stop her from meeting, the most toxic male that she'll ever come across in her life.
Right.
And it works. I forgot. This is very important because this is one of my other issues with time travel, and we'll come back to it. But yeah, there's a part of this that is problematic. But anyway, it works out for her. She's happy, but this is when we learn the thing about the kids, and we can't go back any further than when someone's been born.
Right.
And he's gotta let his sister make her own mistakes and learn her own lessons.
Right.
Which is a really brutal lesson to learn.
Brutal lesson to learn, but necessary, especially in that
for
moment.
both of them.
But also it brings up the question of like, well, I guess you can bring people back with you.
Right.
To time travel, right? Which that's a problem in itself. And then obviously when he went back to change bringing her back, she forgot that she had even done it because it wasn't part of her timeline anymore. It's weird, So
definitely weird.
definitely some time travel laws being broken throughout this film for sure, but
Times aren't a lot, and like again, it doesn't really seem to harm the plot very much.
right.
Yeah. But that does set up the ending, in which we know that Tim is going to have a third child, because Mary really really wants a third kid.
Yeah.
And this means that since his dad has passed away in his current timeline, he will no longer be able to go back in time to see his father anymore, which means in this movie, we have to watch a father die twice. And fuck you, movie, for creating such a brutal concept.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what's
Yeah.
funny too? Not funny, but what's interesting too about this scene is like, you know how you were saying earlier we don't get a lot of conflict in this movie? This movie almost gives us a little bit of conflict. So the first moment when we find out that the dad has been diagnosed with cancer and he's going to die soon, they're in an office room, and they had just come downstairs after talking, realizing they left the baby in the room with an important manuscript, and the baby has ripped up and shredded the manuscript. And Rachel McAdams' character closes the door and locks it because like she wants to yell at Tim and like fight about the fact that he left her in this room when she knows that this is a very important manuscript she needs to have ready for tomorrow for her work. And so like this is really the only time where like there's kind of more conflict between these two characters, and Tim can't get out of the room. All he's trying to do is like get to a dark room so that he can like time travel back a little bit and like make sure that the manuscript isn't ruined. And they're like about to have like a really big fight because she's not letting him out of this room. And then all of a sudden they get the phone call from Tim's mom that his dad has cancer and they need to come home. And it's just like, we were like, it was so close to like some real more conflict, right? Like a big fight, which like we never really see because he always is able to go back and fix it. But it gets kind of ruined by a worse thing happening, obviously. I just thought that was an interesting like observation from, just the time travel-esque of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I think that's when the movie like kind of takes a turn, right? Because like for the most part, it feels like this whole movie is going to be about romance, and it's like it's literally at that moment when the movie tells you it's not just gonna be about romance. This is a romantic comedy, but this is also a life movie.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point to bring up because like it does feel like they're about to have a much harder conversation, and at that point, the movie transitions into dealing with life, and we get less of Mary at this point, right? But she's still like a really strong like support for Tim and the rest of the family,
Right.
especially when Kit Kat is in the hospital. I actually found
Right.
Rachel McAdams' performance of when Kit Kat's asking like, "Can you guys go?" and like Rachel McAdams like just shaking her head, and she's like, "No, we're gonna stay here." I found her performance in that scene to be like the most endearing. Yeah, she was wonderful. But anyway, yeah, sorry, long-winded way of saying that's a great observation.
Yeah, no, but I totally agree with you there. Also, can we really quick talk about the scene when Tim meets her parents for the first time unexpectedly?
Oh my god! Why would you ever bring up oral sex? Explain the scene.
Oh, I mean, so Rachel McAdams' character Charlotte hadn't told her parents yet that she's really been seeing someone, and to that point, they aren't just seeing each other; they live together, and so all of it, and her parents were coming to visit, and she never, they always would bail, and this is the time they decided to actually show up, and so they call, like when they're 5 minutes away, and all of a sudden Charlotte has to tell Tim that he's about to meet her parents for the first time in the next 5 minutes, and they don't even know really that they're dating that seriously, and two, that they even live together. And Charlotte's basically just like, let me talk, and don't mention sex or oral sex or anything like that. And Tim's like, what? Well, yeah, of course. I was definitely going to bring up oral sex as like a joke, right? Because like, why would you bring that up at all, especially to parents? And then the door opens, and this is the first time they're meeting. And it's so awkward because they weren't expecting to see a man in the apartment. And like, Tim was just putting on clothes because he was only in like boxer shorts or whatever. And they're like greet each other, and Tim is so nervous that he just goes, "We're not having oral sex." So it's the father. It's just like, what are we doing? It is like one of the funniest scenes, like in any movie. It's so awkward and so hilarious. And then obviously he's gonna go back and do that whole moment over again because he's just so caught off guard. But it's just like, imagine if you couldn't do a moment like that over. How do you get over that? Like, how do you come back from being so awkward?
You don't.
You
You just take the L.
You take the L. You just move on. Find another girl.
Yeah, that scene is brutal.
So awkward.
Yeah, Tim is painfully awkward. I mean, he's supposed to be, right? Like Domhnall Gleeson, like his performance is perfect as like a painfully awkward person.
It's fantastic.
But also like very endearing. It's to the point where like when he first meets Mary, they meet in I don't know what this concept is called. I know this movie didn't invent this. I know it exists, like a darkened restaurant where you go in, you meet people, but everything is there's no light. You can only just talk to people. You have no idea what anyone looks like. And he is so smooth with the girl that he has no idea what she looks like. He's just saying like all the right things. He's hilarious. It was to the point where I was like, bro, just blindfold yourself. Just like wear eye patches all the time. Like you don't need your eyes. You're like, you are the smoothest man on the planet when you cannot see.
Yeah, that's funny. Such a great point. Oh my goodness.
I do want to bring up the kind of the last moment really before we get to the ensemble montage of everyone.
Sure.
It's the final goodbye with Tim and Dad. And Dad realizing, oh, like this is it, right? Like this is the last time we're gonna see each other. And because of the concept that was set up earlier with Kit Kat of taking her back in time, Dad says, if we're really careful, like we won't change anything. I want to do one last thing with you. And it's just Dad and Tim. Tim has returned to they've come back to a point in Tim's life where Tim is a child, and it's the two of them just running on a beach together. And the movie didn't set that up, right? Like, we never heard about like what exactly Tim's childhood was like. I mean, I guess he does say in the beginning like it was a pretty great childhood, right? But like, there was nothing that sets up this moment, and I don't care. Because of like how like endearing this moment is, it's just wonderfully beautiful and like just like the best way to like say goodbye to someone. I think that was the moment that like crushed me the most is this goodbye. What about you?
Yeah, the last scene with them, playing ping pong again like they always do, and it's just like the last meeting, and then the music, the perfect score plays. It's just totally heartbreaking, but like you said, just like a beautiful life movie, like it's like you're sad, but like you're also happy about it because like they're getting more time to spend with each other than anyone else normally would have, right? So because of this like cool little thing that they can do, which is time travel, coincidentally. So it's just a really cool concept to kind of explore, like the further meaning of it all, basically, in like a normal life trajectory. Really, overall, it's just a super enjoyable film. Like, you have to watch it if you haven't seen it. It's just like totally heartwarming.
This would probably be on my list of like top 10, might even be a top 5 time travel movies for me.
It's really good.
Which is again why I'm really pissed that you got it in the draft. It's really beautiful. Great choice. Anything else before we move on to time travel?
No, No, I'm good. I think we can talk about time travel a little bit and do the deal.
Time travel. Okay. Time travel in this movie, very simple, like you said. I think I only have two nitpicks with it. So, movie tells us that the rules are you can't go back further than when you were born, only to places that you remember. Go to a dark room, clench your fists, and imagine where you want to be. The additional rule later that we get is you can go beyond someone else's birth, but if you do, you will change the outcomes of the birth, which, again, I think that's a good limitation. I think all the limitations are pretty good. There are things about this time travel mechanism that, like, raise a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
The first one for me is, so unlike the Harry Potter time turner, you do pop into existence, but, like, you can make the time turner thing work, right? Like, as long as, like, you're not in the same spot as you were when you pop in and out. Whereas, like, this one, so you appear geographically in the same closet or dark space that you're in, right? But, like, you're taking the place of a you that's already there. So does that you just, like, get deleted?
Right.
And, like, everyone, like, you're in mid-conversation with somebody and, like, you're just gone and everyone's like,
right.
Did anyone else just see Tim blink out of existence?
Right. Exactly. This is a huge plot problem, a huge problem with the time travel mechanic. And this is what a lot of, like, critics back when this movie came out had issues with. Because, like, science-wise, time travel-wise and science-wise, this film does not try to explain that part of it. It's like, this is a romantic comedy. We're throwing in some time travel. If you think about it too seriously, you're going to ruin the message for yourself. However, we're going to talk about it seriously because this is the point of this particular episode and time travel draft. So the mechanics are atrocious in this film because you literally are you have to go, like, you can travel back in time, but you will show up wherever you started from. So if you are in the future or in your present and you are in a cupboard and you travel back in time, you will end up in that cupboard in the past, which means, like you said, your other existence in that timeline just disappears. Right. So that is a huge time travel plot hole. Like that really ends the conversation on, like, how is the time travel mechanic in this movie? Well, unfortunately, it's awful because it just doesn't work. There's no explanation. And then furthermore, when you go back to that cupboard to then time travel back to your present, which really becomes your future. So when they say at the beginning of the film that you can't time travel to the future, that's kind of bullshit too, because the second you time travel back to the past, your past becomes your present, and then your
that was a really
future.
Good science argument.
So, like,
right,
it's really all wrong if we nitpick. Okay, and it's not even a nitpick because it's a big problem. So.
You just made me so excited because you're right. Okay, you're so right, and it's okay. So to, like, break that down even, like. No, not simpler. You broke it down greatly. But to, like, reference a time travel movie that we are going to go over at some point during the series, Bruce Banner in Avengers Endgame points out that if you were to go back into the past, that's become your new present, and that which you left behind in what was the present is now going to be your new future in this new timeline that you're creating, which is why, like, time travel itself, like, is weird and doesn't make sense. So you're right. They do travel forward in time. They do travel into the future, which contradicts exactly what he said. Which, like, I feel like that's simple enough to, like, avoid. Just don't have a return point, right? Like, just have them live out the rest of their life. But I guess there are certain things in the plot that they can't do if they do that.
Right, and then you're just reliving your life over and over again until you get it right. But you can never get it right because there's always going to be something that you want to change.
Yeah.
And this, which ends up being a whole point of the movie. It's like you have to learn to live with some of the things that are going to happen to you because it makes you who you are, basically, right? It's just like,
yeah.
But the time travel portion So many problems.
It's to the point.
But it's fun. It's supposed to be fun,
it's
right?
super
It's
fun.
not.
Oh yeah, this does not
Yeah.
ruin the movie at all.
Of course not. You're right. Right.
Right. But like it's to the point where like this isn't even time travel, like what they're doing. Like they're calling it time travel to like keep it simple, right? But like it's not
Right.
time travel. What they're doing is they're world line hopping, right? Like they're hopping
Yeah.
to a world line where whatever they did before hasn't happened yet, and they can create like a new timeline, right? Like that old timeline still exists. They just jumped away from it, and now they're like
Right.
in this one, and then they return to the present point of that timeline that they
Yeah.
just jumped into, right? It's a totally different dimension that they just hopped into.
Right. We should make a movie about all the timelines that they left behind in this film.
So many
Can you
many
imagine?
timelines just abandoned.
Can you imagine about time sequel?
What a
that is
great-
just all the abandoned timelines.
That's a perfect title for a YouTube video that we should absolutely waste our time doing. That's a great
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
The about time sequel you didn't ask for, but that you need.
about time.
about time.
There's actually so in thinking of the concept of time travel in this movie, like, which again, like I'm sticking with the thought here, world line hopping. There's do you watch Rick and Morty at all?
No.
Okay, there's a Rick and Morty episode that is sort of, it's not like about time at all, but like it's about what we're talking about. So for the record, in the first season, Rick has told us he will never do time travel. He doesn't like time travel, right? He says it's BS. Anyway, there's an episode in like the fourth season or so where Morty begs Rick to give him a do-over button, which is what this movie is, right? Like,
Yeah,
give him a
right.
button in which like he can. It's the idea of like you're playing a video game, right? And right before you fight the boss, you save your game, and then you go fight the boss. You get killed, but then you just return to the last place you saved, right? That's what Rick makes him. He makes him like a do-over button that allows you to save in a spot, right? So Morty uses this throughout the entire episode in like many, many different ways. And the twist is at the end, we find out that it's not a do-over button, that it's not a time travel button, because again, Rick doesn't do time travel, and that what it actually is, it's a button that sends Morty to another dimension where he wanted to be, like in that place in time, and kills the Morty in that dimension so that he can live that Morty's life in the way that he would have wanted to in that timeline. And he's killed countless Mortys in doing
my God.
this. It's an amazing episode.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I would like to imagine he's killed lots of Tims. Lots of Tims have died
yeah.
in this movie.
What a sequel that would be. Unbelievable. It's no longer a romantic comedy. It's a horror film.
Yeah, dude, he's a serial killer.
Oh my goodness. It's so interesting.
There's one more error that I wanted to talk about. It's a rather quick one, and it's one I didn't remember until watching this movie again with you in this experiment. The fluidity in which you remember the changes of a timeline is not consistent. And again, it's done for dramatic purposes. So when we bring Kit Kat back in time to prevent her from dating this really toxic, horrible dude, they come back into the present, and Kit Kat has all of these new memories of this new guy in her life after all these years. And she remembers it almost instantly as they're standing in the cupboard. However, Tim doesn't seem to know the changes that have happened in his life, such as he has a son now, not a daughter.
Right. This is
Yeah.
a great point.
Yeah. Again, it's done for dramatic purposes, and it is a really great reveal, but it's not consistent, and it's a problem with time travel in this movie.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, great point. I have nothing else to say on that. That's
I
a
also
great
have
point.
nothing
Yeah.
else to say on that. I'm just pointing at it. That's all I got.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else on the time travel front. I think I got like everything out of
Yeah, I mean,
off
like,
my
it's
like what I was thinking.
It's a simple enough concept and it's I think we pointed
Simple.
out its flaws, right?
Yeah. Simple, works for the movie, has flaws, like for sure, but it's not the kind of movie where you're supposed to like. It's not the kind of movie that's supposed to have strict time travel laws to get you to like the resolve of the film, right? And that part of the reason is because there's not like huge conflict in the film. It's just about life, and the conflict is that time travel. Actually, the conflict of the film is that you can time travel, which makes it more complicated in some instances by not having to deal with it in the moment. So
it's actually I think that just leaves our grading here.
Yep.
So Nick, you want to kick us off with your grade for the overall movie?
Overall, I love this film, even with the flaws of the time travel mechanics. Like, I want to give this like a 4.6. Like, I just love this film. I could watch it a ton, except I don't like to cry very often. So, once a year is good. But this is like, you have to watch this film if you haven't seen it, and it is it's on the rewatch list. Like, this film will always be rewatched. So yeah.
This is one of the few movies that I'll actually pay Amazon to watch.
Right.
Pay $4 to watch it.
We bought it because it was like $3.99 to rent. Or $4.99 to buy, and I was like, "Well, shit, we might as well just buy it then, because I'll definitely watch it at least one more time." Yeah. So now I own this movie for $5 on Amazon Prime. So thanks, Bezos.
Good moves. Good moves are made there. I don't have anything more to say than what we've already said. I love this movie. For me, it's near perfect. My two Achilles heels are any father and son scene and time travel, and this movie has both. It's like I was made for this. I can't wait to watch Endgame with you.
Oh my God. We've done the whole time travel draft so far in all 3 episodes is just quote the Hulk.
yeah. Dude, he's got the best quotes in that movie.
He's got so many quotes. But we might have to do comedy next. Yeah.
For sure. For me, it is this is a 4.9. It is
nice.
Yeah, it is almost a 5 for me. It's so close. Wow. It's so damn close.
It is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I being a coward? Fuck it. 5. I'm being a coward. It's a 5.
We've got a 5. We've got a 5 out of 5. This is like a 5.
And I'm giving it
Joe's
to your
real
movie.
Pissed that I
I'm
picked
giving
it.
it to your movie, okay?
Man, I should have given it a 5 too. Damn. Can I change?
I changed it.
Wow. 5 out of 5. Joe. That's the highest score we've ever had on this podcast.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect score.
It's a perfect score. It's
I
the first. This is the first perfect score.
Yeah, it's the first perfect score, and
on
it's
our
your
podcast.
movie, you son of a bitch.
2 years in, you did. You picked it. I picked it. You scored it. This is great. I might crush you on this time travel draft here. It might.
If I do lose, it's because of this moment right now.
Yeah, very possible. And Endgame would be the other reason. I forget. What's your time travel comedy?
Time travel comedy is Groundhog Day.
No, that's your romantic. That's your romance.
Oh,
that's
you're
what
right.
We're
That
doing
is
next.
my romance.
I think Midnight in Paris is your comedy.
I have it mixed up. It's Midnight in Paris is my comedy. Yeah.
So Midnight in Paris is going up against Endgame. That's that lineup. That's interesting.
Uh-oh.
That's cool. Whew.
Okay. Since again, time travel draft. All right. Here's
right.
where shit gets serious.
Yeah, this is true.
Grade the time travel on this movie.
This is the brutal part because it's not. It's technically very bad. The time. I mean, 2.5 would be nice, but 2 is probably the real score. 2.2 out of 5.
Yeah.
It's not good. The time travel doesn't work. It works in the overall context of the film, and it makes the film fun and enjoyable, and it does what it needs to do to make you believe and make the film work. But if we just grade it on specifically time travel, it is completely flawed. So 2.2 is the score I have to give it, which is maybe a little high, but it is what it is.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It does what it needs to do. So for that, it's not a bottom score. So for that, it's a 2 for me.
There we go.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, and then in how it did in the category, which the category was romance, romantic time travel. What are you giving it?
Oh, I think I mean it's right on the money from the romance perspective. Granted, like it is more about the relationship between father and son than it is, but it's a 50-50, right? Like half the movie's about finding the love of your life, and then the other half of the movie is like dealing with the families, like your loved ones that you grew up with, like progressing and changing in their lives, and also moving on. So for romance, I have to give it a 4.8 out of 5. I think it does well. I just don't want to give it a 5. I think that it's not full romance because half of it is more about the relationship between the family, your family, like him and his father, which that's not really romance, right? That's like a different kind of love. So 4.8 out of 5.
I am going to be a little lower than you on this, but not a lot lower. I'm going to say a 4.5 here. I agree with what you said that, there's a big portion of this movie that is not romantic. However, like most of the time travel in this movie is about romance, like whether it's about his relationship with Mary or it's him trying to save Kit Kat from making a poor romantic decision.
Yeah, true.
Most of the time travel is for romance. So yeah, I think it works in the category really well, even if toward the end of the movie, it's more about life than it is about romance. Overall, still very romantic. So yeah, 4.5. Nice. Overall, it's a great movie. I would say thank you for choosing this movie, but like, fuck you for choosing this movie because I wanted to choose this movie. But either way, I'm super glad that we watched it. It is like you said, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a review right there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we're in romance. So, like you pointed out, thank you for reminding me. Groundhog Day is next out on the list, and somewhere in the cards, either next or in between, Dune. We are covering Dune Part 2. Yeah,
I think Dune Part 2 is next because
Dune Part 2 is next. But until then, may the review be with you.
Peace.